Now, Douglas will soon have a new British Prime Minister. Some of the main contenders are women and people of colour, which will leave the identity politics obsessed left utterly confused.
I don't know about that, Rita. They might not leave them confused, Rita. I'm sorry, I've got to pick you up on that. I know very well, and so do you, that the black contenders will become white and the women will become men for the left. You know that very well.
Absolutely.
Rita. We know the rules. We know the rules. If you're right wing and you're a woman, you're a man. And if you're right wing and you're black, you're white. You know that. Come on.
All your minority privileges are out the window as soon as you're conservative centre-right. They don't care about that at all anymore. You wrote about some really significant lessons that should be learned from Boris Johnson's downfall. In the New York Post, you wrote about how flaky Bojo has been, and after sweeping to power with a huge majority, he seems to have listened to a small circle of advisors, including his woke partner, and tried to do everything he could to show he wasn't a conservative. You wrote that he ignored the UK's border crisis, pumped money into unreformed welfare state and raised taxes. And who can forget this performance at the G7 in Cornwall last year, where he said this in front of Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau.
But also that we're building back better together and building back greener, and building back fairer, and building back more equal, and how shall I, in a more gender-neutral and perhaps a more feminine way. How about that, apart from anything else?
Oh, that worked out well,
Rita,
didn't it, Douglas?
Has it finished? I can't watch that clip. I cannot watch that clip. It's so excruciating. Almost only bettered only a week ago, just before his downfall, when Boris Johnson claimed that Vladimir Putin, if he'd been a woman, and he said, well, which he isn't, as if that was in doubt, said if Vladimir Putin had been a woman, he wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Clearly had never heard of Catherine the Great, who did just exactly that. And then Boris Johnson said that the invasion of Ukraine was a classic example of toxic masculinity. I mean, some of us wondered whether there hadn't been an invasion of the body snatchers, Rita. I mean, I've watched Boris Johnson a long time. I've known him slightly for 20 years. He has some very basic conservative instincts. And it seemed to me that he had one absolutely vital historical role, which was he actually did lead Britain out of the European Union, as the public had asked. And Parliament wasn't doing that for years. And he actually delivered that when he got into office. But, you know, Boris Johnson came into office in 2019 with an 80-seat Tory majority, an 80-seat Conservative majority, which is a bigger majority than any time since Margaret Thatcher for the Conservatives. And he then wasted it. He wasted it on tax hikes. He wasted it on green nonsense. He wasted it on building back more effeminate and non-binary or whatever it was nonsense. And he just lost his way. And, you know, there is going to be a lot of picking over this because it is yet another of the worst prime ministerships we've had. I mean, we've had several of them just in the last decade, but it's another just terrible prime ministership. He wasted a majority, he wasted a crisis, and he basically now leaves office with a single achievement really to his name, which is that he did lead us out of the EU. But apart from that, it's just this sad demonstration that if you go into politics with some principles and you give up those principles, in the end, you just get battered hither and thither by the winds of your time. You get lost, you lose your moorings, and in the end, you lose your voters and your party. And that's exactly what Boris Johnson's fate has been. I think he's always dreamed in recent months of sort of going back to the simpler life of a scribe and finishing the book on Shakespeare he was commissioned to write some years ago. But, you know, Boris Johnson's career and life and legacy could have been so much greater than that. And as it is, somebody who should have been one of the great figures of modern politics has ended his prime ministership just into 2 years into it with almost nothing to show that you could call conservative.